Well, hello everybody, and like I said in the Piaget lecture, and also prior to that, I wanted to give you an example of how I would take notes if I were you. So I'm just going to play the first slide of Piaget, and let you see how I would take notes during this presentation if I were you. Now, I will admit that if you are not a very good typer, that it might take a little bit more time. And also, if you don't take notes on your computer, obviously that it would be a little bit different because you'd have to be writing them. But nonetheless, just take a look at kind of the type of detail, because I'm going to give you many details that you don't really need to know. It's really the main things that are important. And so hopefully this will help you see kind of the general idea of what I would be looking for and the level of detail to which I think you could do really well on both the quizzes and the tests if you took them this way. So I'm going to go ahead and play this so you can get an idea. So Jean Piaget, he was born in Switzerland in 1896, as you see. His father was a medieval historian and a, quote, man of painstaking and critical mind who dislikes hastily improvised, generalizations, and is not afraid of starting a fight when he finds historic truth twisted to fit respectable traditions, end quote. So seemingly a fairly serious man and an academic. His mother, he said, was intelligent but was neurotic, and that led to some family issues. And family turbulence actually led to some of his interest in psychology and psychoanalytic theory and the like. As a child, he was Okay, before I do any more, notice I'm not putting down every word. I'm only putting down kind of the main points. That quote about his father, I'm not going to ever quiz you about a random quote about his father. In fact, I promise you, I'm never even going to ask you a question about his father on a quiz or a test. But nonetheless, it could be helpful for you to get a fuller picture of this. And even more than that, I find that when I'm taking notes, if I take really in-depth notes, I actually remember things better than when I'm just listening or not listening quite as intently. It's kind of a way that you can keep yourself, you can check yourself to make sure that you are actually paying attention to all of this. So I'll continue, but just wanted to say, notice I'm not taking out every word. In many things, but especially the biological sciences. He was so interested in exhibits at Natural History Museum that he was actually invited to help the director there with the mollusk collection. And this led to later an offer for him to curate or be the curator of mollusks at a museum in Geneva. But he had to graduate from secondary school first. He was conflicted with his religious and scientific teachings, so he read a lot of philosophers as well. Durkheim, James, Kant, a lot of different people. He continued his education. He ended up getting a doctoral degree with his work in mollusks at the age of 21, but he didn't want to do that forever. So he spent some time doing a lot of different things, but in particular for us of interest is his time in Zurich in some psychological laboratories where he met Theodore Simon, who you might know from the Simon-Binet intelligence test. And Simon said that he wanted Piaget to help standardize their tests with Parisian children. So Piaget did it somewhat begrudgingly, but his interest got piqued when he actually started asking kids to explain their answers. Not just what was the right and wrong answer, but why. And he did this not just for correct answers, but also for incorrect ones. He really was interested in how children thought. This led to the publication of his work in a variety of ways, led him to getting a position to study child psychology for more time, which eventually led him to 5 books and made him a leading child psychologist, even though his degree was in biology. Also, he started taking more detailed notes on children, and specifically his children. And his notes on his children were actually responsible for a decent amount of his theories. They weren't the sole way that he got much of his information, but they definitely helped spur some of his thoughts on the topics. As we will see in a little while, he was also interested in how children thought of space, physical quantities, numbers, perception, and Einstein actually ended up hearing about his work and suggested he look at concepts of time, velocity. I'm going to do that from time to time. I do that in class also for those of you who have ever taken a class with me.
Which is true, by the way.
I will mess up my words fairly frequently, so please bear with me, and I apologize in advance. But the things that Einstein suggested were concepts of time, velocity, movement, and this all helped lead to 2 books for Piaget. He eventually wrote over 40 books, 100 articles and chapters in child psychology, and he was tweaking his theories up until his death at age 84. Piaget is undoubtedly the greatest developmental psychologist of all time. There's a reason we're starting off with him, and we're spending more time on him than any other topic this semester. He's definitely the number 1 guy in psychology, in developmental psychology, one of the biggest people in all of psychology, and hopefully you'll gain an appreciation for that, why that is, over the course of this lecture.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you a decent idea. Again, you might have to pause and rewind and whatever, and that's fine. And you might even just want to listen to it once first so you get an idea of what's important. Like I said, if you want to listen to it while working out or in the car or whatever it is, it would be a way of basically studying before you would typically study. You got to think of the ways to be wise in your use of time when in the summer there's so much less time that you will get in class. So instead of waiting to study right before the test, why not listen to the lecture and then once you've listened to it, re-listen to it, and then take notes while you're doing it. You don't have to do it, but I just really think that could be a good way for you to do so. And if you have notes that are relatively clear like this, when you take the quiz, it should be easy for you to go back. You'll have 15 minutes to do 10 multiple choice questions, so you should fairly easily be able to find the information in it. So as always, if you have questions about this, please let me know, but hopefully this will help out at least a little bit.